You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Welcome into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. It is opening week for all of the levels of minor league baseball that didn't open last week. Tyler Mon, Benjamin Hill, Sam Dykstra, fellas, it's good to see you. Opening day for the big leagues. There are all kinds of crazy festivities around the MLB offices in New York. You guys are posting about the fun food and the cool stuff that's going on. Minor league opening day, you do anything? What's the celebration like?
Good question. I think Sam and I have both been just so busy in our own worlds, a lot floating around every season, just trying to get your head on straight and know what you're doing. This year, for me, even more so, with just a lot of things to figure out. So this is a bad answer. Sam, you go.
Well, I was going to say, it's like, do people count a party as hunting down starting spots for prospects across 10 farm systems? Because that's how
yeah, that's a party.
Yeah, chasing down injury updates and finding out who's had Tommy John surgery and why this guy's on the 60-day IL.
Totally.
That's been the better part of my last 3 days. But no, I mean, like,
some people party. Sure.
Yeah, that's how Jim Callis, Jonathan Mayo, and I party. I'll tell you that much.
And no one else.
And nobody else. But no, I mean, like, it's great. It's so funny being in this job because so much of what we do is previewing the season to come. And the fact that it arrives, it's just like, oh, wait, there's been no official games yet. Like, we've talked about what these guys are going to do. It feels like, and especially with these rolling opening days, right? The Tokyo series, and then Major League opening days, and then AAA opening day, and now AA, High A, Single A opening day. Like, it feels like the season's been going on for a while yet. But, you know, kudos to all those guys who actually get to play games that count now.
Yeah, and Sam and I just decided we're going to have a party tomorrow.
Okay.
Sam and I are having an opening day party. Sam.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah, we're going to bring in our favorite bobblehead and do show and tell in front of the whole office.
I like that idea.
And we will bring in a popcorn machine.
Oh, of course, yeah. The one that we co-own.
Yeah,
we
went in on that.
We came through Prospect Park once a month, and all the local Brooklyners are excited. So.
Yeah, it's almost paid for itself.
I like that idea.
The last several years. So yeah, popcorn, bobbleheads, and we're going to develop a handshake. You know, the way like players like. Remember Bryce Harper joined the Phillies, and he had like different handshakes with all his new teammates. Sam and I are going to have a special Sam and Ben handshake. And
we'll have celebrations like they do for doubles and triples. Like after we finish a story, if I just tap you on the shoulder and do like I don't know, what TBD, what that'll be, like the marimba, or like go fishing is for third base. Like if I feel really good about a story, I'll just do the go fishing thing, and you'll know that I think I hit a triple.
Yeah. We're going to work out our language.
Yeah.
I like this plan. I think this should be in an ad campaign for the Show Before the Show podcast, is the in-office celebrations when one of you guys has knocked a story out of the park. I like it. And a very happy opening day to all of you in the AA, High A, and Low A markets as the 2025 season is here. And hey, thanks for tuning in on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. You can get in touch with us, of course, as always, podcast at MiLB.com. And let's dive in. Let's get rolling on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, because we have much to discuss with Benjamin Hill, who is on the ball for the kickoff of this 2025 season. Opening week promos, Ben, are always so interesting because It's a weird time of year. The weather isn't great in a lot of places. You're not going to get massive crowds after opening day in a lot of places because kids are still in school and blah blah blah. But it's the opening to a new baseball season. If you're just even a single A team in a smaller market or wherever, you still want to get into the flow of the kickoff to the campaign. Give us some of the exciting points of the promo schedule around minor league baseball in these opening weeks.
Yeah, on my newsletter, the Baseball Traveler newsletter, um, I wrote a promo preview column that'll be on the site, MiLB.com and MLB.com on Friday, the same day this podcast drops. Yeah, I mentioned this on the podcast before, but my first little entryway into this world, I mean, first of all, I was just getting a job writing game recaps in 2005, but it was in 2006 that I was asked by Andy Tarica, long gone from this company, but like, hey, Ben, he was working on a promo column and was like, hey, can you like take on the rest of this? And then I started doing it every week. And that was literally the origin story. So it's kind of funny. 2 decades later, or almost 19 years later, I'm writing a promo preview column. In recent years, it's been more of a monthly concern. It's ebbed and flowed, but heading into the season, I was like, let's do it old school. Let's just do for the week. And you're right, Tyler, that after the pomp and circumstance of opening day, things get a little quieter, but also I could mention recurring promos as well, like, oh, it's Friday or it's Tuesday, and this team will be doing this every Tuesday. So just going down some highlights. Beloit Skycarp, every Friday, starting this Friday, they're going to play as the Wisconsin Supper Clubbers. We've talked about that before with the old-fashioned cocktail primary logo. Richmond's The Diamond begins its 40th and final season. Tyler, I imagine you have some memories from that ballpark, and I've always romanticized it. I've only been there twice because it's like the double A version of the ballparks I grew up going to as a kid. Well, specifically the Vet, but that big hulk of concrete, and they're finally moving out of that ballpark. So John Smoltz will be in attendance on opening day for Richmond because before they were the Flying Squirrels, who are a double A team, that ballpark hosted the triple A Richmond Braves, and John Smoltz did play for them back in the late 80s, I believe, like quite a long time ago. The Altoona Curve, another team that Tyler has familiarity with. Last year they did the Paul Skeens Bobble Stash. They're kicking things off on April 5th on their bobblehead calendar with a Jared Jones bobblehead, and it also has bobble hair. So bobble stash last year, bobble hair this year. They like bobbling hair in Altoona, and still waiting on that Tyler Maughan bobble hair.
I was gonna say, they're not making my. I do remember when I was there, they gave away an Andrew McCutcheon hair hat, where it was an old curve hat and it had Kutch's hair coming out of the bottom of it. That was pretty cool. Yeah, they're very. Maybe that's why I only lasted one season there. They seem to pride good hair. Mike Passanisi was obviously the one who was the good hair guy of the two of us.
Yeah, and Altoona, I think just like on the welcome signs, it's like the city of good hair.
City of good hair.
Yeah, I mean,
It is
flowing locks all over that city. It's just these people are gorgeous. It's like a bunch of Troy Polamalu's all over the city.
I mean, you guys know where the name comes from, no?
Oh man, here we go with a Sam joke.
The Altoona hairpin curves.
Oh God.
Yeah. Continue with the promos, Ben.
Yes. April 5th, New Hampshire Fisher Cats are playing the Manchester Chicken Tenders. We've talked about that in the past. The chicken tender was invented in Manchester at the Puritan Backroom Restaurant. Bull Durham is being celebrated by, you guessed it, the Durham Bulls, part of their annual celebration. They're doing that early this year. The Bulls have a new bat dog, Champ, who is replacing his older brother, Ripken, who died right around New Year's Day. So a poignant bat dog replacement there. Champ taking over for his older brother, Ripken. Speaking of bat dogs, Bruce in Rochester debuts. And I don't know if they had a bat dog last year, but they had a bat dog who died as well. Milo, I believe, was his name in Rochester. So what else do we got? I'm trying to skim through here. Christian Moore. I see these players and I'm like, oh yeah, I think he's pretty good. And Sam could probably talk forever, but Christian Moore bobblehead in Rocket City on April 8th. And I looked it up and he played for Rocket City last year, the Trash Pandas, and he's starting this season
Back in Rocket City.
Back in Rocket City. So a pretty rare case in major leagues. You hope your player you're honoring with a bobblehead is on the team when you give it away. But in the minor leagues, the majority of bobbleheads are honoring alumni who've moved on. But because they're doing this early in the season, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he'll be there very long, but he'll be in the ballpark for his Christian Moore bobblehead day on April 8th.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, he was their first round pick last year, and we know how aggressive the Angels like to get. There were even some murmurs that maybe he would break camp with the major league club. And instead, they went with a different 2024 pick. But yeah, Christian Moore back in Rocket City, like you said, Ben, may only be there for a month or so. So get in the bobblehead while he's there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really ambitious, maybe you could get him to sign the bobblehead. I mean, I'm sure there'll be people trying, but you show up early, get the Christian Moore bobblehead, wait around after the game, get it signed. Bam, your kids are paid for in like their whole college tuitions.
I also wonder how many people from Tennessee will be traveling down to that game because he was a star for the Tennessee Volunteers and is like a legend now because he helped them win a national championship. Getting a Christian Moore bobblehead, I think, would be pretty cool. It might be a long drive, but I wouldn't be surprised if some folks try to take advantage.
Yeah, well, that's more, and of course I have more. More like this is just a weekly thing, but want to point it out that the Portland Sea Dogs are once again wearing their teal uniforms, their throwback teal uniforms every Wednesday. And of course, you think Portland Sea Dogs, Portland, Maine, Red Sox country. They've been a Double A Red Sox affiliate for a long time, but they spent their first 9 seasons as a Marlins affiliate. I believe the first Double A Marlins affiliate in the franchise's history. So they are still
Josh
rocking
Jackson has very fond memories
of
of
the teal. Yeah,
those.
Josh
Yeah,
Jackson
of the
was
teal.
a soda vendor named Rocket Man during the teal era. So I think that's been really successful for the Sea Dogs, those teal throwbacks, and had a nice little tie-in last year when the team had Kyle Teal on the team, Teel. And so there are pictures of Kyle Teal wearing the Portland Sea Dogs teal uniforms, and Kyle Teal is now in the White Sox, where he wears a different shade of teal as a member of the Charlotte Knights. Josh Jackson helped that part of the newsletter. He added some of my teal information. Yeah, Bat Dogs Slider in Myrtle Beach turns 8 years old, 56 in dog years. So they're throwing a party for him on April 9th. April 10th, Bowling Green, bringing back the bootleggers. Those are really ridiculous uniforms if you haven't seen them before. Like brown with orange pinstripes. They kind of look like a barrel, because you would transport illicit alcohol in barrels, that kind of thing. Also on April 10th, Columbia Fireflies bringing back the Carolina Grits. And on the promo schedule, it says against opposing team alternate food identity. And they're playing the Charleston River Dogs. And I was thinking, what food identities does Charleston have? And boiled peanuts was all that came to mind. So I could be wrong, but we might be seeing a Carolina Grits versus Charleston boiled peanuts matchup. That's some good South Carolina food action for you. And we'll go back to Rocket City to close this out. Also on Thursday, April 10th, they're wearing anime jerseys that say Trash Pandas in Japanese. And unrelated to that, it's also take Meowth to the ball game. Take meow to the ball game. So you can bring your anime loving cat to the ball game and see the team take the field in anime jerseys and bring your cat to the ballpark. I mean, if that's not a perfect combo, a match made in heaven. It's like peanuts and Cracker Jacks, cats and anime.
Did you say perfect on purpose?
I didn't, but yeah.
Both perfect and purpose.
Perfect, yeah.
Should be spelled Purr, by the
They
way.
should.
For those of you making transcripts at home.
I am slipping. So that's an overview of some promos taking place this week, and that's just 1 week of the season, and that's just some of the things taking place. I know, we all know. There's a lot going on.
It is one of the most fun weeks of the year. And if you are headed out to a minor league baseball game this weekend, be sure to let us know. Hit us up on social media and send us your pictures. Send us your thoughts on concession items. Speaking of concession items, we got an interesting Hartford headline. Mike Abramson presumably tuned in. Hope you perked up when you heard your name. Ben, I'm just going to let you roll with this. Tell us about the Float Your Goat promotion that Hartford was very quick to point out was an April Fool's joke, but also would not really surprise me if Hartford was like, let's actually try this sometime.
Yeah, that's the thing. This seems like such a joke, but in the world of minor league baseball, especially like a team like the Yard Goats, you think like, I don't know. And they weren't even that quick to reveal it as a joke. It took the better part of a week. But on March 27th, the Yard Goats tweeted out and Instagrammed out their new Float Your Goat concession item, a quarter-pound all-beef hot dog with chopped peppers, onions, bacon, and brown mustard submerged in a glass of 100% whole goat milk, which is just,
Everything sounds good until the last part.
yeah. And the picture is what you could imagine. It's a Yard Goats pint glass with the sandwich just stuffed straight into the glass of milk. The Yard Goats were inspired by the Trenton Thunder, formerly Double A Eastern League, now the Draft League. They had announced, and to my knowledge, it's still not revealed it as a April Fool's joke, but they have, maybe they'll have it at the ballpark. They had announced the Swine Brew, which is beer with chunks of pork in it. So I think the Yard Goats saw that and they're like, okay, we can do something like that. And they did Float Your Goat, and it went viral, and they got a lot of engagement. And they kept it going, kind of answering straight-facedly to all the people saying, like, what are you doing? This is a joke. And they kept it up. And then when you thought that they were going to finally say it's a joke, they posted something on social media and they said, you've asked and we have listened. And now people are wondering, okay, yeah, we're not actually doing this. And they say, we're proud to announce we will be offering a vegetarian version of this treat. The Veggie Float Your Goat will include a tofu veggie dog submerged in a glass of oat milk. So they still keep trolling people. Then on April Fool's Day, they said, actually, yes, we were fooling. And then they did announce some of their new menu items for 2025. And one of those, very Hartford, it is a meatloaf donut sandwich. They play at Duncan Park, so this is like a meatloaf sandwich with donuts for the buns. Would say is a pretty big one. Also a 2-foot loaded trough of fries.
Oh God.
You don't see the word trough often enough in terms of concession items. You also don't see trough urinals in minor league ballparks anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember
Let's put those two things
Yeah,
I was
together.
going to say,
but I
that's the
remember-
only, aside from horses, the only other way that I know the term trough is from the Mile High Stadium men's rooms when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I remember in my early days of traveling, and I'm blanking on which ones for sure had them, but coming across a handful of trough, urinals. But we're talking about food, not
You know,
about
it's
urinals.
funny. I would
It's
guess
just
like the
trough.
last,
What a
maybe
word,
the
trough.
last bastion of a trough urinal, and I don't know this, but the Diamond in Richmond, does the Diamond in Richmond have trough? That would have come from the era of trough urinal stadiums.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was definitely from the trough.
Somebody
era.
from Richmond hit us up. Do they have trough urinals in the?
I'm not sure if they still
the old
got,
Diamond
got
there?
got the trough. I feel like maybe Jamestown back in the Jammers days used to. I know I utilized some through the years, and I can check my Ben's Biz blog archives because I would make note of that sort of thing. I
That's
also
all the bathroom pics you've taken throughout the years. Yeah, that's
I've
very
taken
specific.
quite a few. Usually it's like before the gates open, and it has to be like a good reason. I remember Harrisburg Senators years ago, they put what do you call them? Like urinal targets essentially with logos of all the other
Urinal
teams in
cakes.
yeah, urinal cakes,
This is
but
a very gross term.
yeah, featuring every other team's logo in the Eastern League.
That's
Like
pretty
just
funny.
lined up on the urinals. And
That
I
is
wrote a
pretty
blog
funny.
post where I had like 10, 11 pics of different urinals in Harrisburg. I didn't get those on the ground. The team sent them to me, but I've been doing unprecedented journalism for a long time now. No one else went to where I've gone.
That definitely would have been like somebody came out and flagged down like a ballpark representative and was like, "There's a guy taking pictures of the urinal cakes in there."
Oh yeah, that's bad. Don't mind him.
Don't worry about him. He's fine. He's doing research.
Yeah, he's doing research. He's a special guy. Yeah. But yeah, kudos to Hartford for getting some attention, and kudos to Trenton too for their swine brew. I don't know if kudos is the word, but be curious to see when the draft league season starts if they're actually selling cups of beer with chunks of pork in them.
You could make your own swine brew. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and since we're talking about the Trenton Thunder, this is a kind of unique collaboration. Both Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs and Trenton Thunder announced tomato pie alternate identities yesterday, and Trenton will be the Trenton style tomato pie and Lehigh Valley will be like the Philly style tomato pie. So that was kind of cool to have a dual alternate identity, but like accentuating the regional difference between those two. In Trenton, they put on like cheese and other ingredients first and then sauce over that. And in Philly style, it's like minimal cheese, just like tomato sauce and then like a dusting of Parmesan. But we could go on forever. I've gone down some tangents.
Well, it is some good and delicious stuff, with the exception of a fully loaded hot dog and a glass of goat milk. And Benjamin Hill is the man to bring you all of it. And we've touched on a couple of Eastern League destinations. That's where we're headed for our conversation on this week's episode of the show before the show. Terry Byrom, the longtime radio voice of the Harrisburg Senators, who is getting set to kick off his final season in that role, joins us as his team gets set to open up the 2025 campaign. Terry Byrom of the Harrisburg Senators coming up next.
Here on the Show Before the Show podcast, we have special guest Terry Byrom, who for the last 20 years has served as the play-by-play announcer for the Harrisburg Senators, and he just recently announced that 2025 will be his 20th and final season. Terry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, so what's it like heading into your final season? A lot of the time you don't hear about this type of thing until after the season ends, but you're going in on a full-length farewell tour. How'd this all come about?
All right, so the whole farewell tour thing, I don't know that anybody in our league knows who I am anymore. There's been so much change over the years.
I know that feeling.
It was more about just getting it out there so I wouldn't have to talk about it. Or some people knew, some of my friends knew that this was going to be it. Some people in the Eastern League, and I thought it'd be easier to just do a boom announcement before the season started and be done with this. And and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to really enjoying this last season.
Yeah, and you mentioned, just wanting to spend more time with, your family, with your wife, take advantage of things that quote unquote normal people take for granted during the summer. Was that a big part of it, of just trying to get that portion of your life back? As great as baseball is, as you know, it really takes over.
Yeah, I think the last couple of years, it's an odd thing to be our age and to think about fully retiring. I'm not that old, but I think that's changing now over the years too, especially since the pandemic. People are working more remotely, and people that can retire are retiring earlier. And for she and I think we were ready to move on to next. And we'll still enjoy baseball, just won't enjoy baseball like I've done baseball the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, enjoy baseball in a totally different way. So now let's rewind all the way back to 20 plus years ago, and talk about the origins of this. You've been with the Senators since 2005. They're on City Island in Harrisburg. How did you come into this job?
So the quick part of this is that in 1998, I moved from California to a small town in Indiana. That small town had 3 radio stations. They carried high school sports. I answered an ad on the radio to do high school sports. And then in 2002, I thought, I've always wanted to do baseball. So saved up enough money to be able to work that summer for low wages, if that's what happened. And I got a job at 39 with the Ogden Raptors, and worked in Ogden that year, and then was lucky enough to get a job with the Fort Wayne Wizards at that time for 2 years, and then this one in 2005. And it's back in those days, there was an old website called Call of the Game. Jim Tocco and Joe Block, who was a minor leaguer then, they ran that website. And I got vilified for being an old guy taking somebody's young job just to work for a summer to say that I've done it, So I feel pretty good that I'm still here all these years later and have made a career out of this.
Yeah, and Terry, I mean, since you took that Ogden job, so much has changed about baseball in general, but how has it changed both the way you watch it and the way you call it?
Well, I think watching it's hard. You guys, I'm sure, experienced this. It's hard to watch it the same way when you've been behind the curtain in Oz, right? It does change things. I'm still a fan. I'm a fan of the Giants when they won the World Series in 2010. I'm not ashamed to say I bawled my eyes out, even after doing this. It was a big deal to me. I waited my whole life for that. but following it on a daily basis is definitely different. And now, if I go down to a game, if my wife and I go down to Washington at the end of the season, I'm watching a lot of guys that I know. So that's certainly, I'm rooting for it a little differently than I used to because I know there's a lot on the line on every at bat for them personally. And then just in the game, there's, whatever is on the line in the game. So I think in that way, I definitely watch it differently. There have been so many changes to the way that I have evolved to calling a game. Uh, I prepare better now than I used to prepare. I've never been one of these guys, like a lot of broadcasters are, that seem to have a great memory. I joke with Josh Wetzel, the Rochester broadcaster who's been around forever. I joke with him all the time that he'll constantly bring up to me, well, this guy played in Rochester back in 1998. And I tell him I couldn't tell you who played here 2 years ago, much less who played here, some obscure player in 1998. So I need to research a lot because I just don't have that type of recall that a lot of guys have.
Well, I do want to give you some credit because I remember you and I crossed paths in Birmingham or not Birmingham, Binghamton. Let's get those two mixed up. Yeah. Binghamton a few years ago.
We all do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm
very,
sure.
Very similar cities.
Yeah, right. Eastern League and Southern League. They're right next to each other. They're neighbors. But no, in Binghamton, and I remember sitting there in the stands and we were just chatting about, the Senators and all that kind of stuff. And it was right after they drafted Dylan Cruz. And I said, based on what you've seen so far, who do you think's the center fielder, James Wood or Dylan Cruz? And you looked at me and said, neither. It's Jacob Young. Flash forward to opening day. James Wood is in left. Dylan Cruz is in right. Jacob Young's in center. I mean, just in terms of the amount of games you called, how do you feel like you've developed as a baseball evaluator and knowing who are the guys who are going to make it that next step?
Wow. I talked about this with somebody yesterday. There are so many people that do this now that seem to watch the game because of all the analytics, guys that are younger, that really sound like if I go into the next booth, they sound like they're a scout because of the analytics and what they tell me about a player with the analytics. And I look at them and I think, I wish I could do that too. And maybe I'd have a better idea of what these guys are going to turn into, because I think I miss far more than I'm right. It's just, I don't know how anybody really watches one of these guys in low A or high A or even here and says, oh, this is going to be this really good player in left field in 5 years or in 3 years. That one was pretty easy. Jacob Young was really good here and was a really good center fielder. But over the years, I think there have been guys that I was convinced they were going to be big time all-star players that it didn't work out. And so I think it's been more that I've missed than that I've gotten it right.
Is there anybody you want to share who you thought was going to be a superstar who didn't work out?
Well, there's Michael A. Taylor, who's had a great career, came up with the Nationals. Boy, when he was here, I really thought Michael was going to be a guy that was just going to take off, play 150 games a year and do all these wonderful things. And unfortunately, he has done a lot of wonderful things, but he just couldn't quite get to the point that he made enough contact to play every day. He's still a great defensive player. And I really thought that guy was going to be a perennial all-star. Yeah. And I really rooted for that. He was really great while he was here. A really nice young man.
Terry, you talked a little bit about how you've evolved as a broadcaster. The minor leagues have evolved so much, over your time, going from back when you started, I don't want to say the, kind of pastoral old time when we think of like Bull Durham and, it was just small towns, whatever. People had caught on to what made the minor leagues interesting by your early years. But nowadays it's so different. And even just with the schedule, I mean, when you and I were Eastern League colleagues, you'd play 3 games in Altoona, then you'd pile on the bus, you'd head to Akron, then you'd pile on the bus, you'd head back home to Harrisburg, whatever it is. Now with the week-long series, things are a little bit more structured and easy that way. What are some of the biggest changes when you think back to that first couple of seasons with how the minor leagues feel nowadays compared to back then?
Well, especially right now, it feels like very much a little major league almost everywhere. Like right now, we're having construction done here to finally construct the new clubhouse down the left field line. Everywhere else, I guess, except one place in our league is done. And the food, how they take care of, really, that is just night and day now. It's beyond night and day, if that's possible, with the food and the living arrangements for the players, and just how they've become more important to the overall industry than they were 25 years ago or 23 years ago. And so that certainly is different. And then the overall operations, as you touched on, Tyler, that Reading and Portland, they were big operations. They were big operations in the Eastern League and big operations nationally. But it hadn't been that many years when I started in the early 2000s that largely this had gone from being a whole lot of smaller places that were drawing 1,500 people a night to all of a sudden there's 40 or 50 places in the middle of the summer drawing 5,000 people or more. And now, not that that's the norm, but after the cut in 2020, it is becoming more the norm. There just aren't that many places even in this league that we go to on a Thursday night or a Friday night where there's not 4 or 5, 6,000 people in the crowds. So that has definitely made a difference.
When you think back on the memories that you've created just in the broadcasting space of, not necessarily talking about the biggest prospects who have come through or, the flashiest names or the rehab assignments or whatever. I mean, for over 20 years, you've gotten to be the voice of people's summer nights, which is very cool. What are some of the memories that linger with you of just things that you otherwise would never have experienced, but stuff that stays with you as the experiences that you're going to cherish most when you think back on all this?
Well, it's hard because sometimes these things are self-serving, but there are a couple of people here that at the end of each season, the last three years, we've gone up to Cooperstown after the season is over during the playoffs. We go up, spend a couple of days going through the museum and just other stuff in town. So 2 or 3 years ago, the first time we were up there in the Hall of Plaque rooms, all of a sudden I start looking at names in the last, say, 30 years, and I start typing in names of people that I've met, had conversations with, more than just, okay, I've shook this person's hand. And if you'd have told me when I was 15 years old that I would know like 20 Hall of Famers, I would have said, you're out of your mind, right? I mean, holy mackerel. So that is a big memory. And then some of my best friends in the world used to play Major League Baseball. They've been managers here or coaches here. And those are the things that I'll take away. All the relationships that I've had with the other broadcasters, with some of the people that have been fans of ours all these years that I see all the time. And then just the occasional comment. If somebody happens to, one time a summer, somebody recognizes who I am. Hey, I love listening to you. And so those are the things that I mean, how can you not really feel good about that kind of stuff?
That's got to be the coolest feeling, and to have been the voice of one community for so long has got to be just an amazing thing as well. And as you embark on this season now, how do you approach it? I mean, is it going to be difficult from the sense of, when you take your last road trip to Reading or to Binghamton or wherever, that it's going to be, somewhat bittersweet going into those press boxes for the last time? Or how do you feel like this is going to play out knowing that this is the last season for you?
Probably harder than I thought it was going to be when we decided that this would be it. All right. I mean, I have started thinking about those sorts of things as the season goes on. But for the most part, I really am looking forward to being in these places. And I know Todd Parnell pretty well. Been around him a long time, so he's one person that I don't know if I'd say goodbye or not, but he's one person that has made an impact on my life that hasn't been in Harrisburg. And Brian Shawcross in Chesapeake, in Bowie, Maryland, the team Chesapeake now. I've known him all these years that I've been coming to Harrisburg. Mike Nutter, who is still the boss for the team in Fort Wayne, the Tin Caps. We stay in touch and communicate every summer. So I think as this thing plays along, and what you said, like going to Reading, I still see Steve Degler, who was the voice a long time ago for a long time, and Rob Hackash, who was the media guy there when I got there. We'll get together one of the times I'm in Reading, and yeah, I mean it. I'm sure it will feel differently when I'm in the moment than I'm thinking about it right now. So. I don't know how it's going to be honest. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Terry, there won't be any drama, soap opera, reality show style turmoil in the broadcast booth this season because there's a succession plan in place in tandem with your retirement announcement. Hope I'm getting the name right, and we hope to talk to him sometime. But Frankie
Vernowski.
Frankie
Vernowski.
Vernowski
Yes.
has been announced as the lead broadcaster for the
Yeah.
Senators starting next season. What was that process like in getting this set up, not just your final season, but your successor as well?
Well, I hired Frankie out of the pandemic in 2021. And after that season, the team hired him to be a part of the front office. And so he's been on the air with me all this time, does about 30, 35 road games. And that was an easy choice. Kevin Culp, who's the president here, had made that decision a couple of years ago that Frankie, they would figure out how to merge this into what Frankie's responsibilities are full time with the team, and he'd be the new voice. One funny story: when Frankie first started with me, I used to tease him that I'd walk around. He's from Harrisburg, so he grew up here, and I'd tease him walking around Harrisburg. Every night I would do this on the air, and I tease him and tell him that I met someone today, some random person, and they said, "Oh, you work for the Senators." Oh, a friend of mine is the voice of the Harrisburg Senators, Frankie Vernowski. So I tease Frankie about this, that I meet all these people. So my wife and I, he talks us into going to this place to eat, a place that he liked, we had never been to. We show up, and a couple of his friends come in. He excuses himself from us for a minute. And these three guys that come in, first time we've ever been there with them, these three guys, and this one friend of Frankie's to these other two guys says, "Oh, this is my friend Frankie Vernowski. He's the voice of the Harrisburg Senators." So I'm like, "Frankie, so it's true. You really have been telling everyone." And this was like 3 years ago. So it's just,
Do they call that manifesting? He was
yes,
like, I'm going to put this out
right.
there.
That's exactly right. So tomorrow or Tuesday when we're together, I'm going to tell him, "Well, you've been on the air." I'm going to say, "You've been telling everybody you're the number one guy anyway. You might as well be the number one guy." So I'm looking forward to hearing him. He's really good, and I'm looking forward to Frankie having the opportunity to take this and run with it. I think look, 20 years in one place is a long time, and I know there are a lot of other guys. Russ Langer in Las Vegas comes to mind, and I know there are Howard Kellman, for goodness gracious, in Indianapolis. There are guys that have done this, and I don't know how they do it that long, but I know there are guys that have done it 30, 40 years in one place.
Yeah, and Terry, you mentioned several Eastern League locales and your relationships there. But what about Harrisburg and specifically now it's called FNB Field, but City Island Ballpark? It's on a literal island. What are going to be some of your biggest memories from that place? And tied in with that, did you start working during the era where the Mayflies would get electrocuted in the lights and then rain down on the fans, or had the renovations taken place at that point?
No, I started in the old ballpark. Yeah. Probably my single biggest memory is we opened. The boardwalk was done for the 2009 season, but it was the old stands. So 2010 was the new ballpark. All right. So we open up on Thursday night. It's decent weather. We have a good crowd. Friday night, Steven Strasburg makes his first start here. All right. So we're opening the ballpark, and Steven Strasburg makes his first start. It's against New Britain. We have like a 90-minute rain delay. And as you guys know, new ballpark or not, and it was a nice night in April, which is crazy. A 90-minute rain delay in the minor leagues, and you're going to have half to three-quarters of the crowd leave, and no one left, right? It was crazy looking at the ballpark, watching it rain, and everybody's just huddled wherever they need to be, and they wait. So finally, at about 8:30, 8:40, we start the game, and the first pitch was like a concert. Back in those days, before everybody had cell phones, people still had, the cameras, and the flashes went off, and it was just incredible moment because at that point, there really hadn't been, because of the information age changing by then, there hadn't been anyone like him. There had been big prospects and people talked about, but nothing like that. And so that night, that would probably stick with me forever. That was an incredible, that was an incredible first inning, and as electric as I've probably felt in a ballpark, with the exception of some playoff games and World Series games in the big leagues. It was pretty amazing to be here that night.
Well, Terry, this is our opening day show. It's our second one, technically, after last week's AAA. But
Yeah,
for
opening
AA,
month, yeah.
opening month, yeah, we keep having these opening day shows. But for you, I mean, Friday will be another opening day. I mean, what does opening day mean to you?
Well, I love opening day. I loved opening day growing up, going to Candlestick Park. I loved opening day as an adult, going to Candlestick Park till I started doing this. Opening day is just, even in the minor leagues, opening day is just special. Opening day period, and tomorrow night it'll be cold and we'll be in Erie, and it will still mean something. And then being back here on Tuesday for the home opener, and it looks like the forecast is also cold. When those gates open for the first time in a season and people come into the ballpark, there's just nothing like that feeling. And so even being in the booth, and even with it being cold, it's hard not to be emotional about opening day in baseball. And I don't mind admitting that at 61 years old, I still get emotional on opening day. I'll get emotional tomorrow night and I'll get emotional on Tuesday night. And I'm glad. I think that means that I care and this is fun. And I can't imagine doing anything else. And man, I can't tell you how cool it's been all these years to call all these opening days.
Well, Terry, we'll close with this. You mentioned visiting the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown with your coworkers, but the Senators have a very unique Hall of Fame, the life-size bobblehead Hall of Fame. So I know it's not your decision to make, but could we possibly see a life-size Terry Byrom bobblehead on the concourse?
If they do that, I just hope they give me the hair I had when I was 18 and not the hair I have now. That's all.
All right. Well, we'll be advocating for it, and we really appreciate your time and
Sure.
wish you the best farewell season it can possibly be.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
Speaking into the void.
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, it is opening day across the other three levels in minor league baseball this weekend: Double A, High A, and Low A. And as we get set to finally fully jump into the minor league baseball full season mix, it is time to let you know where some of the top talent in baseball is going. And for that, Samuel C. Dykstra is the man on the spot. Sam, let's kick things off with a guy that we've talked about a lot over the last few seasons, which is kind of weird to say because it seems like he's still 16 years old. But Ethan Salas is kicking off his season with Double A San Antonio. The San Diego Padres have obviously been aggressive with what they have seen out of him and what they have felt they can challenge him with. Numbers last year at times were not super impressive. He struggled a bit in Fort Wayne, but made some adjustments and really started to improve, went to the fall league. Tell us about seeing Ethan Salas kicking this thing off in the Texas League for this year.
Yeah, I mean, technically, he already debuted at Double A in 2023. They brought him up for a very late cup of coffee where they just kind of put as many good prospects as they could at San Antonio, and then his season ended early with an injury. But then spent all of last year at High A Fort Wayne, which, again, as you mentioned, Tyler, a pretty aggressive assignment for a guy who's just in his second minor league season and had been signed at the start of the 2023 year. So, you realize how aggressive they were with him. They really like his defense. His offense was pretty good in year one. Last year, it took a step back, 599 OPS. Like you said, he did improve as the year went on. He actually went back to San Diego, worked with their hitting coaches at one point, I think in July. And one thing they said is like, hey, use your height. You're one. If you look at the numbers, he hit a lot of fly balls, which is great. You don't want to hit it on the ground, at least give yourself a chance. But a lot of them were catchable fly balls, and that drove down the average. It drove down the slugging percentage. You want to sting the ball more. So instead of cutting under it, stand up a little straighter, meet the ball on plane, turn some of those fly balls into line drives, and you saw the numbers improve. It had a 109 in WRC plus in August, and then looked better in the fall league despite being one of the younger guys there. Still, I know the Padres are going to Padre. That's what they do. If they really like a prospect, they're going to get aggressive with him. We saw it last year with Jackson Merrill skipping over AAA completely, and that worked out, and they've been rewarded for that process in the past. I just thought this was a chance of like, hey, maybe let's take a step back and let one of our best prospects, a potentially generational catcher, really dominate a level before we throw him in the deep end again. But I think they believe enough in the improvements that he made that they are sustainable, that they are carryable. I know they really like Ethan Salas as a worker, as somebody with tremendous work ethic, somebody with tremendous understanding of the game and the ebbs and the flows of the game. He's a really good defender. I'm not going to say he's a major league ready defender right now. I pretty much never say that about an 18-year-old catcher, but he's as close as somebody at age at that position can really be. He's a great framer back there. He's got a pretty strong throwing arm. So I think they just thought like, hey, man, we've identified you as somebody we think we can push from day one, and we're going to keep doing that. So I'll be interested to see how this goes. I mean, we used to say the biggest jump was from high A to double A. I still feel like that is somewhat true. You're going to go up against guys who have maybe seen the major leagues or are really good prospects at double A. That's typically a very loaded level. So we'll see how this goes, how those adjustments hold. But it was notable to me that even given their history, the Padres were willing to be aggressive once again with such a young and promising prospect.
All right. There annually seems to be a guy who Sam Dykstra loves out of the Milwaukee Brewers organization who is going to one day be the guy that everybody was like, oh, no, I always loved this guy. And this year, that is Jesus Made, who is headed to Carolina to kick off the 2025 season. Jesus Made has a whole lot to be really, really excited about, especially with what he does at the plate, being young but really mature in his plate approach. What do you see about him going to Single A Carolina and the fact that this is a guy who could be on a fast track depending on what he is able to accomplish early on this season?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the Padres are going to Padre, the Brewers are going to Brewer. They have done this with one prospect a year, going back to Jackson Chourio in 2022. Chourio skipped over the Arizona Complex League that year. Then Luis Lara did it the following season. Joffrey Rodriguez did it last year. Now Jesus Made follows in that tradition. All of those other guys were outfielders. Made is now a shortstop / third baseman, so maybe there's a difference there. But I think he's coming over with more hype than any of those guys. And part of that is the results he had in the Dominican Summer League. A lot that we've already talked about in the past. He jumped into our top 100 for the first time. But a lot of that is because the underlying data that you said, Tyler, backs up the numbers. Usually we take DSL numbers with a healthy grain of salt because, they're teenage pitchers who don't always know where the ball is going. They're learning their stuff. It's easier to take walks there as long as you're willing to be patient. And he certainly was that, but he also was hitting the ball hard at a level that was met by like Jose Ramirez and Jazz Chisholm Jr. are his comps for exit velocities right now, not like future. Like the way he's hitting the ball hard now is equal to those guys. So it's really interesting profile right now. It's one that I think he could be plus hit. I think he could be plus power. And the Brewers are like, all right, we're not going to wait like we did with Chourio. Chourio, they waited a few weeks to push him to Carolina because they're like, we want him to get acclimated, all that kind of stuff. Made, because of some changes in the CBA, they were actually able to bring over earlier in the spring. So he's been around like even major league camp a little bit. So I think that helped. But they're pushing him out. And it's not just him. There's two of those guys this year. Luis Pena is also there. And he's another shortstop slash third baseman. So I'm going to be interested to see with the Mudcats how those guys rotate through. What I was told in the offseason is that Made is going to be pretty much prioritized at shortstop. I think because he's the better prospect and you want a priority guy sticking at the six as long as you can. But Pena is a plus plus runner. He's got a strong throwing arm. It'd be interesting to see if it's like 4 starts a week at short, 2 at third base, maybe some second base mixed in there. But the the Brewers have a good history of this stuff. And again, like Made's coming over with more hype than Churio at the same time. And if he meets that hype and carries these, like I said, the advanced approach and the ability to square up balls, if that carries over to single A, we're talking about easily a top 10 prospect in the game by midseason, if not top 5, if not top 2, if not top 1 even.
Man. Big
No,
prediction.
I just like threw a lot of coal on that hype
Yeah.
train. But it's
Wow.
just it's so rare. He doesn't turn 18
Yeah,
until
that's the
May.
crazy thing. May. He's 17 to start this
He's
season.
17.
He'll be
Yeah, he
18.
would be high school. He would be draft eligible this year, and he's already going to get single A time, ample single A time by the time many his age will be drafted in July. So, it's really impressive. There's every possibility. I will say this. I will throw some brakes on that hype train. There's every possibility he struggles early on. There's just so much that goes on for those guys when they jump from the Dominican Summer League to single A.
Yeah.
Not only just being in the States, but like now you are in an affiliate. You are in Zebulon. Like it is not the Dominican anymore that you're used to.
You're not in a
So the
complex.
language.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not somebody there to hold your hand to go grocery shopping. Not that I'm saying these guys are babies, but like,
But 17, man, I didn't know how to do anything.
think of
when I
where
was
we were when we
17.
were 17.
I still
Yeah.
barely do. I'm almost 40.
Yeah, I need to call up my mom every once in a while. Be like, "Where are the ingredients for this
Yeah.
dish?"
Where do you think they would stock sun-dried tomatoes?
Yeah.
Okay. Sam, let's move to the geographically locator absent Athletics, who have their AAA franchise smiling with an addition to the roster to kick off the 2025 season. And that is MLB.com's number 37 overall prospect, Nick Kurtz, who was the 4th overall pick in his draft year out of Wake Forest in 2024. And I mean, really, very early on, has made people pretty excited with what he is able to do. 39 home runs in a couple of seasons at Wake Forest. He was in the conversation for a while to be the top overall pick. He had a shoulder issue that somewhat slowed him down. But this is a guy who's got really, really good bat-to-ball skills, a lot of pop, doesn't strike out a ton. He seems as though he is a complete package type of guy. And I don't know how long we're going to see him at AAA if he continues to succeed the way that he has through the first week.
Yeah, I mean that's the fascinating thing, right? As we're recording this on Thursday, he got bumped to AAA, and I believe other than Cam Smith, who obviously opened with the Astros, right out of the draft, he's the only 2025 hitter to play so far. Nobody else has been assigned to AAA, so he's the only guy, and he's opened 10 for 21 with 3 homers and 2 doubles. He is slugging a clean 1,000 through 5 games. Now, it's a fascinating assignment because, like you said, Tyler, I think there's a lot there that are reasons to be excited about Nick Kurtz. It's an advanced approach. He hits the ball hard. It's like 65 grade pop. If you wanted to argue for 70, I wouldn't push up against that. He's a pretty good defender at first base as well. And I think the A's just really trust that he could work with this assignment, but it's also Las Vegas, which I'm not going to say you or I could slug 400 at Las Vegas, but it's a pretty hitter friendly environment.
Yeah.
So even if Nick Kurtz is struggling to adjust to the level, he can still hit like 20 homers by July there just by getting the ball up in the air like we know he can. So then it's thankfully AAA is a StatCast level, so we can dive into the exit velocities. We can find out about some other things. Even if he's putting up some monster numbers, there might be signs of a struggle there still. But it wouldn't surprise me if we get to the All-Star break and if he's still in Las Vegas and he's slugging 700. And then what do the A's do? Like if the Tyler Soderstrom is a very popular breakout pick going into the 2025 season. He plays first base. They have Brent Rooker, are arguably, I feel like almost inarguably, their best hitter, just pure hitter, not best player. Lawrence Butler is definitely in that conversation, but like he's their best hitter and he's at DH, so that you can't really shift those guys around. So what do you do with a guy like Nick Kurtz? I don't know. I'll be fascinated to learn how they're going to make that work. It's a great problem for the A's to have, honestly, obviously. Um, but yeah, this one's fascinating. Like, yes, you get aggressive with the guy, and that's awesome to see. But it's also in a place where he could still thrive. You don't normally have that type of Venn diagram at the AAA level.
All right, Sam, let's go to the Phillies system, where the guy who is getting our interest peaked from the Phillies organization is not yet 21, I believe, and is actually this season will start at 21. He just turned 21 in January, but is one of just a handful of guys at 21 or younger. And this is what I've been tap dancing around. The fact that he's Carl Crawford's son I still feel like Carl Crawford should be like 26 and just being Carl Crawford at the big league level. But Justin Crawford is knocking on the door of the major leagues right now, and is a guy who there are still some things to refine with his approach, but man, he's good. I got a chance to see him in Tokyo during the Premier 12 tournament in November, and there's just so much of his talent, skill set that feels major league ready. Give us the breakdown of where the younger Justin Crawford sits right now.
Yeah, this one was a fascinating one to me because, like you said, Tyler, there's a lot there that is almost major league ready or practically major league ready. The speed certainly is. He laced a triple down the right field line the other day and had a home to third time that I think would have been third fastest in the major leagues. And he got there standing up. Like, it was not him like really hustling to get around there. It's super easy speed for him. And he succeeded last year at Double-A. I get it. He batted 333, had a 380 on base, 455. But the big question for Justin Crawford, and this has been true basically since he's been drafted, is the guy puts the ball on the ground a ton. He did that last year at Reading. It was a 61.3% ground ball rate. That's continued so far with Lehigh Valley. Even that triple that I mentioned that he hit the other day, that was like laced on the ground. I think it had a -2 launch angle. In talking to the Phillies this spring, one thing they said was like, hey, if the guy continues to hit 300, I don't really care how it looks. Like, if he's just getting on base and putting the ball in play and using those wheels, like, we'll take that. So this kind of backs up that belief of like, you could send him to Double-A and be like, hey, we really want you to start lifting the ball. Just try to get that ground ball rate under 50 as best you can. We're going to put you in Reading. If you lift the ball in Reading, the ball tends to go out. It's a very hitter-friendly ballpark, surprisingly so for one that's not in the Cal League or the Pacific Coast League. And really thrive here. He only played 40 games there. It wasn't like a full season by any means or even half a season. But by pushing him to AAA, I think they're like acknowledging, hey, this is just who you are, and we think you're pretty close, and just prove it to us here. Just do everything you've already done here, and we'll see how that looks. Maybe you're in that conversation for a center field spot by the second half, if not earlier, if they really are in dire need of it. So it was a fascinating assignment to me. You mentioned that he's 21 years old right now. There are only 5 players at AAA who are 21 or younger. All of them are top 100 guys. The other 4 are Roman Anthony, Samuel Basayo, Moises Ballesteros, and Cole Young. So usually I get excited. See our conversation about Made, about age compared to level. That's usually a pretty good indicator. Here, this felt even a little aggressive for my blood, but we'll see how it works out early on. Mentioned that ground ball rate before. As it stands right now on Thursday for Crawford, it's at 87.5%. Like, that is not sustainable. You cannot run like 9 out of every 10 batted balls into the ground and expect to be successful at the major leagues. I'm sure that's going to balance out as it goes along, but are they going to be willing to live with 60% and call them up then? We'll have to wait and see.
All right. From the Phils organization, we're going to go to the Toronto Blue Jays system, where one of the guys who has one of the most interesting baseball backgrounds, Arjun Nimala, who was the 20th overall pick in 2023, could be the first ever player of Indian descent to make it to the big leagues, the first generation Indian American player, highest drafted in the 4 major sports for his heritage, and a guy who is really, really talented and again is still really young, 19. He goes to the high A level with the Vancouver Canadians. One of the cool things in the Jays system is that you get an opportunity to see these guys playing at the only other professional baseball franchise in Canada when they pass through that Vancouver classification. So you kind of give the appetizer of what you could see for these guys in Toronto. But Arjun Nimmala, I mean, another guy who there are things about the approach that need to be refined. He really struggled striking out a lot early on. But what do you like about where he sits at the start of this season?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be one of the most fascinating debates in terms of where to put a prospect because Arjun Nimmala jumped into our top 100 after that midseason adjustment that he made when he got back to the Florida State League in late June. He hit 13 homers in his final 53 games, slugged 564. That's pretty impressive for the pitcher-friendly FSL. And it was notable he made some posture changes. Like you could pretty easily tabulate exactly how this all worked out. And so then I think the debate for the Blue Jays is like, he was really young last year to open in the FSL and then struggled. Do you send him back to the FSL? And even though he had basically a full year there, allow him to thrive for a month and then push him to high A Vancouver. But I think the fact that he made those in-season adjustments proved to the Jays that he can do that again, even if he struggles in Vancouver. And listen, playing in Vancouver in April is no fun. Like that's not easy to do by any means anywhere in the Northwest League. Those are going to be some cold games. There are going to be a decent amount of 0 for 4s. Let's be honest, for a lot of guys hitting up there. But if he's already proven to himself that he can overcome a slow start, why not continue that aggression? Why not allow him to still believe in himself and prove that he can adjust again? So the fact that they did this, I love it. I love the move. We'll see how it works. I kind of have Nimmala pegged for 25 homers this year, which would be a nice step up for him. I think the power is in there, and I think it's playing more in games now. And you saw it a little bit this spring in public-facing games. They're excited, just as excited about Nimmala now as they were the day they drafted him, if not more so, because of the way he's made adjustments. So keep an eye on it. Even like I say, like even if he has an OPS that begins with 5 at the end of April, no reason to panic. Trust the process, I guess, as they all say, and believe that like Nimmala is a guy who can overcome that. Now it's going to take a sustained struggling, and maybe he won't. Maybe he'll come out firing and continue that momentum from last year, and it'll be a moot point. But I'm really intrigued to see how he does. But I think I'm going to be more intrigued come June than I am in April or May.
Okay. We go to not one, but 2 chases next, and both on the pitcher's mound in Chase Burns with high A Dayton in the red system, Chase Dollander with triple A Albuquerque in the Rocky system, a couple of guys with crazy velocity, although everybody in baseball has crazy velocity these days. Let's start off with Chase Burns going to high A Dayton.
Yeah, this one was a little interesting to me because you talk about like Jack Caglione going to Double A, JJ Weatherholt going to Double A, Nick Kurtz going to Triple A, like these top 10 picks out of the draft. Cam Smith obviously going to the majors, like although he's not a top 10 pick, but like these college guys who were really advanced in the 2024 class getting pushed aggressively to Double A, Triple A, even the majors. And Chase Burns is at high A, which is a little bit more traditional, fairly traditional, I would say, for a college arm. But so I don't want to call it passive by any means, because you look back to what the Reds did last year with Rhett Lauder, another guy from Wake Forest, another first-round pick. He had five high A starts before moving on to Double A. So I think this is just about allowing Chase Burns to find some footing, get a foundation here. And as Lauder proved, like there's still every chance you could start out the year at high A. But what is the phrase we always hear, Tyler? It's not where you start, it's where you finish. And Lauder made some major league starts last year, made 6 of them for the Reds. So Burns could very well be on that track. So if you're looking at this and being like, I wonder if something's up with Chase Burns, why is he not getting pushed as aggressively as the other ones? I think this is just the Reds being like, hey, it worked last year for Lauder. I know he's dealing with an injury now, but like, why not just follow that again with Burns? And he could fly very quickly. Wouldn't be surprised if he's in Double A before he makes his 5th start, because like you said, he's touched 100.2 miles per hour this spring with 19 inches of induced vertical break. He's got a hard 89 to 91 slider. His curveball earns plus grades. He's got above average changeup. They're just weapons that could really mow down the Midwest League.
All right, now Chase Dollander in the Rocky system goes to AAA Albuquerque last year between High A Spokane and Double A Hartford. Really, really good numbers. 23 starts, a 2.59 ERA. But obviously, with him, the strikeout stuff is massive. 169 strikeouts and 118 innings last season, and so far just one outing under his belt with Albuquerque, but good early returns. Chase Dollander is, he's a really, really fun arm, and he's going to go to a place that is a graveyard for pitchers, not only at the big league level, but at Albuquerque as well. That pitching staff had a really rough 2024. Give us the lowdown on Chase Dollander.
Yeah, Tyler, I'm almost more interested in what you have to say and think about this as somebody who's obviously closer to the Rockies organization. But like Chase Dollander was very much considered for a rotation spot out of spring because the Rockies need pitching, right? Like they're not going to be able to go out and sign big name free agents to come to Coors Field and not since like Mike Hampton, right? So they need that internal development, and Dollander's like as good a pitching prospect as they've had since John Gray, maybe.
Yeah,
like,
probably.
I think that he'd be right there with him. The stuff is already played, but like sending him to Albuquerque, like you mentioned, that's another high elevation. The Albuquerque pitchers last year had a 6.59 ERA. That was the highest in full season minors. Nobody else had one above 6 as a staff. Like it's going to be tough. It could be tough times for Chase Dollander pitching in Albuquerque. I know he has to get used to that environment, but it wouldn't have surprised me if they had followed like the Angels lead, who don't like to send their top prospects to Salt Lake City because you can really ruin your numbers as a pitcher or inflate your numbers as a hitter and get into some bad habits. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they sent him to Hartford just to be like, hey, go get comfortable and we'll call you up when we think you're ready, which might only be a handful of starts. I kind of like it because, again, like you need to get used to that. But what are your thoughts on sending a pitcher to Albuquerque?
I think you can go one of two ways. You can either get a guy in a position where he has some success and you feel really good about bringing him up, or he goes to Albuquerque and everything turns into a disaster. We saw this with Jeff Hoffman in the Rockies organization. You've seen what Jeff Hoffman has turned into since leaving the Rockies organization, but he just could not get out of a house of horrors, whether it was in Colorado or in Albuquerque or wherever. And I think eventually some guys just get beaten down by that. And so there is a big test component to that. And obviously the Rockies are hoping that Chase Dollander is going to be able to ace that early on. But the flip side of that is if he doesn't, have you crushed the potential early breakout pedigree of a guy who is really, really good and has showcased at his first couple of stops in pro ball that he's really good. It's also, from the standpoint of people who watch this organization, what are you doing having the guy go to Albuquerque and not at least just giving him the shot out of the gates? You're not going to the playoffs this year. Why not give somebody the chance to make an impact as early as possible on your major league roster? The Rockies, 3 of the Rockies' top 4 starters this year are the same 3 who were among their top 4 starters in 2017. And that's Kyle Freeland, Antonio Senzatella, and German Marquez. And Marquez coming back from injury over the last couple of years. But it's not as though there's a glut of pitching that is keeping Chase Dollander down in the Rockies organization. So I think a lot of people are frustrated by that here. But, that's kind of the way that it's gone with this franchise for a while with, prospects who are talented that for whatever reason don't get looks until, long after you sort of feel like they're on the doorstep and probably should be getting looks. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I do think that if we see a good April out of Chase Dollander, he'll be in Denver by May. You would have to assume that. If not, that is some prospect development malpractice because he's not doing anything for you being in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just throw out there as well. I mean, I understand he had a 7.13 ERA in 6 starts in the spring. He only threw 17 and 2/3 innings, so not even 2 full complete games. Gave up 5 homers, walked 10 in those 7, but also struck out 24 in 7.
And it's one of those getting your work in, doing the things you're trying stuff. Your spring training numbers. There are so many things that go into spring performances, as you know better than anybody, that you can't just look at the numbers. And yes, the numbers were not good, but yeah, the point obviously stands if you are somebody who's arguing for, well, we got to send him to Albuquerque and get him more time there. There is some stuff that you can lean on with it. Whereas I think with a lot of other people, they think, well, what good is that going to do? Just let him go out and give it a shot at the big league. The stuff is big league stuff. I think everybody can agree on that. And I think that's the point you're making, especially with the strikeouts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, Sam, let's go for the final stop in some of our prospect preview projections, at least as far as an individual prospect goes, to Double-A Springfield, where the Cardinals, Luis Castellum is headed to Double-A to get things started this year. Not a guy who I feel like that many people are aware of as of yet, but tell us about what you've seen, what you like out of Luis, and where he's going to start this year, an aggressive start to the season.
Yeah, this one's just more of a deep cut, really, than anything. He's the number 30 Cardinals prospect that we put on there. He had 70 strikeouts in 48 innings last year at Palm Beach, but his changeup, it's like absolutely Looney Tunes. 81 to 84 miles an hour, negative induced vertical break, which means it just basically falls off a shelf. 15 to 16 inches of arm side movement. He threw it almost half the time last year, but like half of his changeups ended up as either called strikes or whiffs, and that continued into the spring. It was really special stuff. The Cardinals pushed him aggressively, moved him from single A to double A. He's already 23. He was 21 when he signed in April 2023. So I get it to some degree, but like he's somebody who could have a lot of momentum. And we look at Craig Yoho and the Brewers, who I shared last week, I think could get Rookie of the Year votes. Gastelum, his changeup might be right there with Yoho's for like best in the minor leagues. So it would not surprise me in the least if he gets some major league outings this year and just zooms through Double-A, through Triple-A, and helps out that St. Louis bullpen at some point.
He's an interesting story, too, because as you noted, he was signed at 21. He made his professional debut in the Mexican Pacific League, which is the winter league there, or for Los Mochis, and he's pitched there over the last couple of seasons while he's been in affiliated ball as well. But like you look at his numbers early on in his career, and just very obviously a young guy trying to figure it out. His debut season, 7 1/3 innings, he walked 4, struck out 3, gave up 3 runs on 11 hits. Next season, maybe started to show some signs, 14 1/3. 13 hits, 8 strikeouts, 3 walks, like nothing that blows you away. Then all of a sudden he gets into the Cardinals organization. 2023, decent numbers, but then last year, I mean, just blew up. And that continued over this season back in the Winter League. Put up a 1.82 ERA, but he struck out 37 batters in 24 2/3. So it's just been kind of cool to see a guy who comes from a unique prospect background, put together some really insane numbers, and a guy who, yeah, as Sam noted, an interesting possibility of somebody who could make the strides to be in the big leagues and contribute to a bullpen coming up sooner rather than later. All right, so those are some interesting individual starting points for 2025. What about teams, Sam? There always seem to be some squads that kick off the season just loaded with prospects. We know a few of those to open the year. What are the teams that you're keeping eyes on?
Yeah, I mean, Worcester getting to be there for opening day last week, getting to see Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer. Roman Anthony already has a 2-homer game under his belt. Marcelo Meyer, as of speaking of this on Thursday, has gone deep in back-to-back games down in Jacksonville. So those guys are very much meeting the hype. Would not surprise me at all if Roman Anthony is up at some point in April, maybe. Just because like he's already got ample AAA experience. He hits the ball as hard as anybody at AAA. I know the Red Sox have a loaded outfield as it is, but like Roman Anthony's a guy you make room for. And we're already seeing Christian Campbell hit the ground running right in the majors, and Anthony is right there with him. Many consider him a better prospect than Campbell. So we'll keep an eye on that team just to check in on those guys, but also to see like how close are they to getting a call up. High A West Michigan is a fascinating lineup to me. Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal, their 2023 picks who jumped they became top 100 prospects last year, were really solidified themselves as that. McGonigal's coming off of a broken hamate, but looked great this spring. He really controls the zone. If I had to pick, he would be my pick to win the minor league batting title this year. And they're also joined by Arizona Fall League Triple Crown winner, Josue Briseño, who last week, Kelsey Hennigan on this very program predicted would win the MiLB hitting prospect of the year. And I said I like that a lot. So that lineup contains 3 top 100 prospects. The Cubs lineup at AAA, the Iowa Cubs, I think is as loaded a lineup as you're going to find anywhere in the minor leagues. Owen Casey, Moises Ballesteros, who we talked about before, James Triantos, Kevin Alcantara. That's 4 top 100 prospects in that lineup, and all of those guys are banging down the door to Wrigley. We've already seen Matt Shaw debut with the Cubs. He was very much part of that foundation. And then Cade Horton, somebody who's dealt with injuries the last few years, but he's in Iowa now as well. So that Iowa team is going to be basically must watch every night, seeing how those guys can contribute to the Cubs' potential contention in the NL Central. And then one rotation I'll shout out real quick is Double-A Birmingham. Before I said Binghamton when we were talking to Terry Byrom, now I'll actually say Birmingham. The White Sox send Noah Schultz back to the Barons, pitched all their last year, but never made more than 4 innings in a start. And or I guess he started out the year at Winston-Salem, but like most of the year was spent with Double-A Birmingham, and I was expecting him to maybe get moved up to Triple-A Charlotte, but I think they wanted to see him go deeper into outings at the Double-A level first. Hagen Smith, their first round pick. We were talking about Chase Burns opening up at High A. Hagen Smith is actually opening up at Double-A. Sounds like those guys have really developed a strong partnership, and I think part of that is pushing each other, right? Like they are the 2 top left-handed pitching prospects in baseball. Get them together, get them competitive in a way that we saw Boston's Big 3 be competitive in 2024. I think that'll only breed success for the White Sox. And then Grant Taylor, who I think could jump into the top 100 at some point this year for the White Sox. He's expected to be with Birmingham as well. He has 4 above average to plus pitches. He was on that Louisiana State team that was absolutely loaded a few years ago. But he had a lat strain that shut him down for much of 2024. Hopefully he'll be healthy this year and be another key cog in that Barons rotation.
So the 2025 season is upon us as minor league baseball opens coast to coast, and nobody better to give you the lowdown on all of it than Sam Dykstra. Coming up, we are going to hear from our now returning voice of Ghost of the Miners, Josh Jackson. It's always so weird to hear Josh out of context as like a real person when we had him on the podcast to preview the season. But thankfully, we've pushed him back to Ghost of the Miners duty. I can rest assured that my comfortable method of listening to Josh will return here shortly. That's next on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show.
Interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club or player hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once played pro ball for parts of 3 decades. The others are not known to have played any kind of ball for so much as part of 1 day. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball players did at one time exist. A. Chase Riddle. B. Hunter Pazell. C. Holden Enigma. You have all the answers if you picked A. Chase Riddle, who was a true baseball lifer, playing 18 years in the Cardinals, Red Sox, Indians, and Tigers organizations from the 1940s into the 1960s.
Just a friend, but you can call me the Riddler.
There's no riddle about this. Chase knew how to chase the dream. Through the back end of his playing career, the catcher and corner infielder was also a manager, serving as skipper for 10 minor league teams over 12 seasons. After that, he worked for 16 years as a scout for St. Louis, inking an amateur southpaw by the name of Steve Carlton in 1963, before taking the head coaching job for Troy University in 1979 and staying in that role through 1990. Knock, knock. Let's go back to the beginning of Riddle. Charles Ludi Riddle was born in the home-to-be of the Double-A Clingstones, Columbus, Georgia, in 1925. He was the nephew of 2 big leaguers, brothers Johnny Riddle and 1948 National League All-Star pitcher Elmer Riddle. Chase played for a few semi-pro and pro teams down south and signed with the Red Sox at age 17 in the year 1942, but guess what uniform he put on next? From 1943 through the finish of World War II, it figures that Chase Riddle suited up for the United States Navy. Out of the service by age 20 in 1946, Chase was soon chasing pitchers from games. Over the next few years, Riddle had opponents scratching their heads as he played his way through the Coastal Plains League, the Carolina League, the Can-Am League, the Interstate League, the Central League, the Eastern League, and, well, just about every other league but the major leagues. It was in 1953 that Riddle really baffled all comers. Soaring in his role of player manager with the Panama City Flyers in the Alabama-Florida League, Riddle solved every puzzle, missing the Triple Crown by 2 homers, he hit 25, and leading the league in nearly every hitting category, including with a batting average of .411. All the while, he was also praised in the press as a master strategist for his managing. Chase Riddle died at age 85 in 2011. If you've been to a Troy Trojans game at Troy University, you've paid homage by sitting in the park partially named for him, Riddle Pace Field. And that's how Chase Riddle really never left us. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams was municipally minded in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Crescent City Councilors. B. The Plymouth Taxpayers. C. The Niagara Falls Citizens. Want to know the answer? Attend a town meeting, or tune into the next Goes to the Minors. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is throwing out the first pitch, and I've got to duck.
Well, huge thanks to Terry Byrom earlier in the show from the Harrisburg Senators, and to our fearless, intrepid reporter Josh Jackson for Ghost of the Minors. And with that, we get set to wrap up this week's episode of the show before the show, but not before we name a dude. And this week's episode of Name That Dude, we have returned to our dude naming normalcy, in which one of us has a dude to be named, and the other two will try to name that dude. This week, Benjamin Hill is the dude knower. Ben, take it away.
Yeah, this one comes from a friend of the podcast. Oh, I just backed into the lights and the lights went out, and Sam's a little scared. It's okay, Sam. There we go.
I don't know what kind of mood you're trying to set for
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were getting ready for like
a dude mood.
This is a scary story.
Yeah, let's get in a dude mood.
No, we don't need a dude
The show before the show after dark.
This came from friend of the podcast, Lynn Smith, who has submitted dudes before. And where to start with this man? He was drafted by the San Diego Padres organization in 1982 and starts his career as a 17-year-old with Walla Walla. I always wished I could have. I think they still have a independent or summer collegiate team.
The Walla Walla Sweets.
Yeah, the Walla
Sweets.
Walla Sweets. Walla Walla. I remember I got to interview Tony Gwynn at his Hall of Fame press conference, and I asked about his minor league career, and he just said, like, Walla Walla, home of the sweet onions. That was like that's where he started too. But anyway,
we know this dude is not Tony Gwynn, by the way.
He's not
We've
Tony
now
Gwynn.
eliminated one.
No,
We're
83.
narrowing it down.
Narrowing it down. Like, that's where we got to go. 83, Reno, when they were in the Cal League, I believe the only team in Cal League history that was not located in California. Played for Reno in 83 and 84. Also spent time with Spokane Indians, though a Padres affiliate, in 1983. Then 85 to the Ranger system. Tulsa, the Drillers. Salem Redbirds in Salem, Virginia. And then makes his major league debut in Texas with the Rangers, 86, 87, 88. Cubs, 89, 90. Phillies, 91, 92, 93. Houston, 94. California Angels, 95. Back to the Phillies organization in 96, though he did not touch the majors. But he played in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and Clearwater. Then one last go with the Kansas City organization, splitting time between Omaha and 7 games in Kansas City in 1987 to end his career. than he did play in 2001 and 2002 with the independent Atlantic City Surf. I can now give the position. I felt it might have been too easy, but maybe it would have been me if I just gave the position right away. But that's his arc. A pitcher. Started as a starter and then became a reliever. A reliever in 86, 87, 88 with the Rangers, 89, 90 with the Cubs, 91, 92, 93 with the Phillies. 93 with the Phillies was the last decent year he had in his professional career. Then bounced around for several years and never was himself.
Man.
I can't say my knowledge of early 90s Phillies bullpen is great.
He was not just a reliever, but he was a closer during his peak. I once
Was it Mitch Williams?
No.
Yes.
It was?
Yes.
Mitch Williams. Wow.
I mean, that's not really
Nice work, Sam.
If you're going to say somebody from the Phillies bullpen in the early 90s.
Yeah, and why he fell off a cliff. Of course, he gave up that home run in Game 6 of the World Series. That was my peak era, or one of my peak eras of Phillies fan growing up. Yeah, 91, 92, 93. Mitch, Harry Callis would call him Mitchy Poo. Mitch the Wild Thing Williams. I went to a Phillies camp maybe in 91 or 92, which for most of it was branded Phillies camp, but most of it was at our local high school, Wissahickon High School, home of the Trojans. But for one day of this 1 week camp, we got to go to the vet. And
that's cool.
And they took us to go speak with a player. And it was supposed to be John Kruk, but I don't know. He was in the trainer's room or something, and they pulled out Mitch, and Mitch gave a Q&A to a teenage me, a group of teenagers, young, I was 13, I think.
And that's where your baseball journalism career.
Yeah. Well, okay, two things about that. I remember my brother, who was also in the camp, just raised his hand and asked Mitch how much money he made, which is a funny story. And I didn't ask this question, and I somehow never forgot. Someone asked him what hitters he hated to face, and he said Billy Joe Rubidoux. He said he's probably driving. I remember he said he's probably driving a UPS truck right now, but I could not get Billy Joe Rubidoux out. And for some reason, this stray remark of over 30 years ago, I always remember that Mitch Williams had problems with Billy Joe Rubidoux, which would have been early in his career in the American League. I think Billy Joe was with the Brewers. But the things you remember. And speaking of that, was the start of my journalism career. We also had a more impromptu Q&A with Jim Fergozzi, and the pitcher that night was Mike Williams, who went on to have a pretty long career, closer for the Pirates. And he was the starting pitcher. And I was so into baseball. So I wanted to ask Jim Fergozzi a smart question. And I was like, oh, cool. They've got this guy making his debut tonight. I know that. I want to ask this knowledgeable question about a guy making his major league debut. And then I got nervous during the question and blanked on his name. And I asked Jim Fergozzi, is tonight's pitcher a good pitcher?
It's a valid question.
I felt like I blew it. I was supposed to be the 13-year-old, prodigy, being like, Mike Williams is starting tonight, and
he's been throwing his sinker.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Is tonight's pitcher a good pitcher?
I want to try that sometime. I want to be texting a source and just be like, "Hey, is this guy good?
Do you think this guy's good?"
Probably. You know what? Obviously, or honestly, I've probably done that at some point.
It's a valid question. It's an important thing to know about players, whether or not they're good.
So, big day for Mike and Mitch Williams and young Ben Hill.
Mitch Williams, this week's dude on Name That Dude. This is a fun episode on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Happy opening day to all of you across AA, High A, Single A. We are excited to get rolling here in this 2025 season. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. For Benjamin Hill, Sam Dykstra, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Rahn. We'll catch you next week.